Hi Flashes, today I am going to walk you through how to set up this performance task. I'm not doing the whole thing for you because I do want to see what you guys can do on your own, but I do want to go ahead and get you guys started. Okay, so the first thing, it says, for this performance task, you will use inequalities and equations to help Mrs. Whitson, the principal of FCJH, choose the best company to use for a field trip for your math class. So over here off to the side, I wrote how many students are in each of your guys' math class. So if you are in first period, there are 29 students, third period is 28, fourth period is also 28, and then sixth period is 26 students. So you will be using this information depending on what class period that you are in here in a moment on the back side of our page. Okay, so what I would do is look for your class period and then just go ahead and write down how many students are in your class. Okay. Alright, so the first one says each bus company charges separately for transportation and food. Each company also charges a fixed service fee of $35. So no matter what, you have to add on $35. So no matter what, you have to add on the $35 to your transportation and food. Okay. So part A says define variables for food, transportation, total cost, and students, and then create an equation to represent the total cost of the field trip. So when you define variables for multiple different things, you want to make sure that you're using different variables, but again, it does not matter what variable that you use. So let's say for food, I want my variable to be F, so I'm just going to write it above, and then I'll also write it down here. Let's say for transportation, I want it to be T. Let's say for total cost, I want it to be C. And then let's represent students as X. Okay. So down here, I'm just going to rewrite all of that. So define the variables. I'm going to have F equals food, T equals transportation, C equals total cost, and X equals students. Alright, so I need to go ahead and set up my equation here. So remember, the easiest way to set up equations is to always start with your total. So our total in this case right now is just represented by C. So I know for a fact that my equal part is going to equal C. Then I need to figure out an equation for the food, the transportation, and what to do with the students. So on this field trip, it's going to cost transportation per student, and it's going to cost food per student. So all that I'm going to do here is, I know for a fact I'm going to be adding the transportation and the food to equal this C. And I also have a service fee of $35, which is my constant. So when I go to set up this equation, I'm going to have my food times the number of students. So whatever the cost of the food is times the number of students, plus transportation times the number of students. So that would be T times X. And then the last thing that you have to add on is that $35 service fee. So this is what your guys' equation would look like. So you're taking your food times the amount of students plus the transportation times the amount of students plus the $35 service fee, and all of that will equal your total cost. Okay. So if you are in first period, what you would do, and we're going to do this on the next part, is your 29 students in your class would be represented by these X's. So technically, if I wanted to go ahead and plug in the 29s, because I know how many students I have, you're more than welcome to do so as well. So like if you're in first period, your equation would be F times 29 plus T times 29 plus 35 equals C. So that would be your equation, okay? But for right now, this right here is what we're all looking for, okay? All right, so moving on to B, the principal has a budget of $400 to pay for a class field trip. Use variables for students, food, and transportation from Part A to create an inequality knowing that the principal budget is limited. So same thing, we have already set up our equation, but now that they're saying that the principal has a budget of $400, so we could spend less than $400, but we just cannot go over $400. So this is not an equation anymore talking about a budget of 400. This is now talking about an inequality. So we just need to set up the same equation from Part A, however, we're just going to change the equal sign to an inequality sign. So I'm still going to have the food times the amount of students plus the transportation times the amount of students plus the $35 service fee. And then if we have a budget of $400, that's going to be our total cost. But you guys need to figure out what inequality symbol we need. So a couple different ways you guys can think about this is if we have a budget of $400, can we go over $400? No, we cannot. So that means that your inequality needs to be chopping up the 400 since that would be our biggest number that we can have. And then you just need to go back and say to yourself, okay, well, can it equal $400? Can Mrs. Whitson spend all $400? And in this case, she could. So that's why you would need the equal part. So this is the less than or equal to inequality. Okay. So moving on to the second page. So the table shows the cost structure for transportation and food. All right, so I know my video paused, so just give it a moment. So number 2, the table shows the cost structure for transportation and food from some companies that Mrs. Whitson can use for the field trip. So looking at the table here, our company Affordable Bus has transportation of $7 per student, $10 per student for food, and then the service fee of $35. We also have Mellow Yellow, so it's $9 each for the first 20 students and then $5 for each additional student after the 20. Cost of food is $7 per student, and then service fee is $35. We also have the Busy Bus, $12 each for the first 10 students and then $7 for each additional student after that. And then the cost of food is $5 with the service fee of $35. And then the last one here, the Cozy Seats, is $8 per student for transportation, $7 per student for food, and a service fee of $35. So Part A down here for number 2, using the information above, which company do you think the principal should choose for the class field trip so that it's within the budget? Your choice must be supported with mathematical reasoning and expressed in complete sentences. Organize your work in the space provided. Lines are provided on the next page for your written response. Okay, so we are going to use the inequality that we used on the front page here. So I'm just going to rewrite this inequality at the top here to help us remember what our inequality statement was. And this part is where you are actually going to start plugging in the number of students for your class. So we said that first period had 29, third period had 28, fourth period also had 28, and then sixth period had 26. Okay, so you only have to do this part for your class. You don't have to do it for any other's class, so you just do it for yours. So let's say I'm in first period and I notice that there are 29 students in my class. So I know for a fact when I go to show my work that I'm going to plug in 29 for X. Okay, so let's look at the first one, so the affordable bus, and I'm going to make sure I organize my work here. All right, so for the affordable bus, it said that the cost of transportation was $7 per student and the cost of food was $10 per student. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in these dollar amounts into my equation for food and transportation, and then I'm also going to plug in my number of students in for X, and then I'm just going to solve to see how much it would cost. Okay, so our F represented the food, and it said it cost $10 per student for the food, so I'm going to plug in 10 for F. And then in first period there's 29 students, so I'm going to plug in 29 for X. Then you move on to the next one. So T was transportation. It said it cost $7 per student for transportation, and then there's 29 students in class. And then you have to add on that service fee of $35. All right, so now we are just going to solve this equation. So first thing I need to do is simplify. So I'm going to take 10 times 29 to get 290. Then I'm going to take 7 times 29 to get 203. And I'm going to add the 35. Now I'm still going to simplify all these together. So 290 plus 203 plus 35 equals... So when we add all those numbers up together, I got 528 is less than or equal to 400. So are we able to use the affordable bus? Are we going to stay in budget if we use the affordable bus? Well, you guys notice that the 528 is not less than or equal to 400, so we know for a fact that we cannot use the affordable bus. So I'm just going to put an X there. Okay, so let's try the next one. So the next one is mellow yellow. And I do want to help you guys set up this equation because it is a little tricky. So mellow yellow says the cost of transportation is $9 for each student for the first 20 students, and then $5 for each additional student. So when we go to set this up, your food is going to be the same as what we kind of did up here because the food is $7 per student. So you're just going to plug in 7 for your food, and then again, however many students are in your class, you'll just fill that in for X. But when it comes to the transportation, so you are still going to plug in the $9 for each student for the first 20 students. So you're still going to plug in 9 to T. However, since they said that it's only for the first 20 students, instead of plugging in 29 for X, you're only going to plug in 20 because it's only $9 for the first 20 students. So that's why you're going to put the 9 times 20. But add $5 for each additional student, you have to add on the 5 times, and then you still have to take away the 20 students that you have already accounted for. So depending on how many extra students you have, it's going to be your X minus the 20 students that you already accounted for, and all of this will be in one thing for transportation. So that's why everything is enclosed in that parentheses. Then you still have to add on that $35 service fee, and all of this should be less than or equal to 400. Okay, so let's review this. So hopefully you guys understand the cost of food was just the 7 times 29 like we did up here, okay? However, the transportation, it was $9 for the first 20 students. So that's why you had to take your 9 times 20, even though first period has 29 students in their class, because you're only paying $9 for the first 20 students. But then after that, it's going to be $5 for each additional student, but you still have to subtract the 20 since you already accounted for those 20 students here with the $9. So I still have my variable x here because I still have to account for those extra 9 students in first period that would get my 5. So if I were to plug in 29 for x, hopefully this makes more sense to you guys. So again, it's $9 for the first 20 students, but then after that it's going to be $5 for the extra 9 students, because if you were to plug in 29 for x here, do you guys see how I get 29 minus 20, which gives you those 9 extra students in first period? So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense for you guys. Okay. So if you guys were in fourth or third period, instead of plugging in 29 here, you would plug in 28. Same thing with sixth period. Instead of plugging in the 29, you would plug in 26 here. Okay. So 20 students, $9 for the first 20 students. And then after those, you have to account for the rest of the students, and they would be $5 for transportation. All right, so let's simplify here. So first thing is I'm going to take the 7 times 29, and that gives me 203. Then I'm going to simplify the inside here, so I'm going to take the 29 minus 20 to give me 9. And then my 9 times 20 is 180. And then 5 times 9 is 45. All that plus 35 is less than or equal to 400. And then I still need to keep simplifying here, so I still need to add up all these numbers. So 203 plus 180 plus 45 plus 35 equals $463. And all of that in our inequality should be less than or equal to 400. So, can we use mellow yellow for this field trip? We cannot, okay, because $463 is not staying in budget. Okay, so this is where I'm going to stop, and I want you guys to do the rest of this packet, okay? So if you guys notice, there is more text box on the 3rd page for you guys to show your work for the busy bus and the cozy seats. Okay, so make sure that you guys are organizing your work here. The busy bus, notice how the busy bus is going to be very similar for what we just did here to mellow yellow. So see if you guys can figure that out by comparing the busy bus to the mellow yellow. And then I want you guys to try and do the last page on your own as well. Just please remember, after you guys figure out what bus, what transportation that we need to take, in the lines you guys need to support your mathematical reasoning in complete sentences. So just make sure that you guys are filling in the lines to show your reasoning. To show your guys' reasoning and follow everything that they want you guys to follow. Okay? So I hope that this makes sense. If you guys still have questions, just let me know. But this needs to be done by tomorrow. But hopefully you guys can get it done in class. Okay? Thank you.